there's always going to be these highs and lows of life, and that's never going to change. Do you think that that is like a major pillar of kind of getting that soul back in the right spot?
Well, that's a hard pill to swallow.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the MTNTOUGH Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Diefenderfer, and I'm so glad that you are here. We absolutely love seeing you dive back into these episodes week after week, and every single week it is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest that adds some tools to that mental toughness toolbox so that you can level up, stay dangerous, and live always ready. If you are a brand new listener to this show, real quickly, I do want to make sure to let you know that as a MTNTOUGH Podcast listener, you do get 6 weeks for free of training on the MTNTOUGH app. All you need to do to take advantage of that is go to MTNTOUGH.com, click Start Free Trial, enter the code MOUNTAINPOD, MTNPOD, and that will get you going for 6 weeks for free. Shifting gears now to today's guest. On the show today, we have Jerrad Lopes. Jerrad is a amazing public speaker, and he's also the author of the book Dad Tired, and he's really devoted the last few years of his life to dads and how he can help dads get out of a restless, soul-tired apathy state and get back to being the fathers they know they were supposed to be and the fathers they were created to be. He's doing some really powerful work, and he's gone through a really powerful midlife crisis himself that he's walked all the way through. So some really, really powerful conversations in this episode. So please stand by for Jerrad Lopes. I'm excited to chat, man. I think your speaking and your book on dads being tired is really interesting. You and I were just chatting before hitting record that you have 4 kids, I have 2, and navigating that sense of life, that season of life, is quite tricky. Like one of our close friends here at MTNTOUGH is Jim Ramos, and Jim Ramos has the Man in the Arena and the Man in the Arena podcast. Also out of the Portland area, wrote quite a few books, and he's been a great friend and mentor of mine. And he talks a lot about the stress bubble, in that when you are around 40 and you are a working professional and you have a mortgage and some car payments and you have some kids, he calls that like the stress bubble of life. And he has a cool analogy where he's talking about, like, if I'm blowing up a balloon, eventually if I put too much air in that balloon will pop. And so he defines the stress bubble as like one big breath of air would be like the mortgage. One big breath of air would be the first kid. One big breath of air would be the second kid. And now all of a sudden your stress bubble is pretty full. And a lot of men are going to feel that. All men are going to experience some components of that for sure. And what Jim has helped me a lot with is we don't want that balloon to pop. But he articulates it as generally that balloon is not going to pop. What's going to happen is it is going to deflate. And what we really want to happen is we want that balloon to rise. So we don't want it to pop. We don't want it to deflate. We want that balloon to rise. And that analogy has always helped me a lot, because it's so true that these different things of life and outside external adversity are going to really challenge that balloon, that stress bubble. And deflating is what I see the most of. Deflating, is you go passive, you go quiet, you start living out your dreams, you stop working out, you start numbing it with substances. So deflating is the most common versus when a lot of people hear that analogy, they think that balloon is going to explode. Well, exploding is pretty rare compared to deflating. And, at Mount Tough, we do a lot to make sure that men aren't deflating. And I know you do the same thing. So I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah. When he talks about it rising up, I guess, what would that look like? What does rising up look like?
Yeah. Rising up, he defines, and we've talked about as not seeing a lot of those things as burdens, but rather as just huge, tremendous blessings. So almost kind of the language of pressure is a privilege. So like what a privilege it is to be blessed with a good occupation, blessed with children, blessed with multiple children, and trying to switch that mindset that these aren't burdens, these are huge blessings, and there is a way that we can thrive through this stress, and that's always been really helpful to me.
That is helpful. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's helpful.
How do you are you kind of seeing the same thing? What would you define as almost like with your work and with your work specifically towards men and dads, what do you see kind of as like a state of the union of the American man now?
I think, man, a lot of guys, I would agree with what you said, and it sounds like how Jim is articulating the deflation what it seems like it's how that's playing out most is through apathy. Guys just being super apathetic. It's just like getting into the mundane. They've kind of lost any vision. I think in our 20s, we have like, what's my life going to be? And you have a lot of ambition. It drives us. And then we get married, we start to have kids. You lock yourself into a mortgage, these types of things. And then all of a sudden it goes from like, what are the next 2 years or 5 years of my life going to look like? And now you're like, okay, I guess this is my life for the next 20 years. I'm thinking less in the matter of months and short years and more in decades. And for some, that can feel really discouraging, especially when you've spent your, teens and 20s kind of being ambitious for the next year. And that seems to suck the drive out of guys, and they turn apathetic. And it's just like, okay, I feel like I'm in the rat race of just going to work, I guess trying to fill up my retirement and make sure our bills are paid and the kids are eating and my marriage is still there and not falling apart. And you just get into the mundane every day, and you just kind of watch guys. I actually really like that visual picture of deflating, because that is what seems like guys. It's happening to guys. It's just like the wind is slowly being pulled out of their sails, and they're just starting to wither away. And then it just turns into kind of numbing out. What is the most exciting thing you can do? Well, it's like, I guess, join a fantasy football league, like, I guess that's cool. Or maybe we'll go on a hunt. Like, I'll look forward to going on a hunt or getting on the boat, or we just kind of like these cheap thrills that never really satisfy. But it just keeps our hearts in this like really apathetic. So to answer your question, that was a really long answer, but I think guys are generally, it seems, just really apathetic. They've lost drive.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen that in like a plethora of that for sure. Curious your thoughts on, is that something unique to this season we're in around 2025, or is that something that's been going on for a long time?
I don't know if I'm smart enough to, to like speak into that from like a historical or even cultural. I think there are people much better equipped than me, and I'm also in the middle of that season, so I don't have like wisdom to look back at. Like I'm in my 30s and I got 4 kids, so like I'm in the thick of it, so it's hard to see the forest through the trees. For me personally, it does seem like, that, what's that saying? You probably know, it's like good times create weak men. Hard
times create strong men.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I do think there's this kind of like, we're just all kind of comfortable. Like if there's no problems, there's nothing to really fight for. Then we get super apathetic. We just kind of chase the next comfort, and the next comfort never really satisfy. Like, oh, cool, you won the fantasy football league. Like,
yeah,
is that really making you get up in the mornings? Like, your 401k maybe went up a little bit, or whatever. Like, is that really getting the juices going? And so, yeah, I really think that like guys are really longing for more, but I don't know if that it's just because we're super comfortable as a people, or if it's just age and all guys in their 30s and 40s have dealt with this. I don't know.
It's really interesting too, because I've seen a lot of men that are apathetic and they know it, and they're pretty miserable at their job, but they're kind of willing to do that for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, where some individuals can't handle that for a year and they're on to the next thing to kind of like maximize their time here on this earth. What do you think, what do you think helps some people get out of that apathy while others can remain in it for decades?
Oh, I'm curious your thoughts on that. Like, I was going to interrupt you and hear what you had to say about that. Like, where do you land on that for the guy that's like, he's feeling apathetic, and so he just keeps searching for something, so he's kind of bouncing around, versus the guy that hates his job, but he's just going to stick with it for the next 15 years, 20 years, because he knows he's just got to provide for the family. In your mind, is there like a one is right? Or I was curious where you were going to go with that.
Yeah, I believe one is right, and I believe it from the perspective of, I feel like those callings that men are getting to do something different are from the Holy Spirit, especially for Christian men. And so if God is asking you to do something for his kingdom, I am a believer that it needs to be done. And if you're not ready or you're not willing, he's going to find someone else that is ready and willing to do that. And so I think especially with believers, if they're being apathetic when they hear different nudges, like maybe I should move to this town, or maybe I should get out of this job and start this business or this ministry, I think when they remain in apathy, they're being disobedient. And I think that a lot of that, in my experience, is very driven by the fear of financial security. I would say I see as reason number one. I would say reason number two is the fear of what others are going to think, like friends, family, colleagues. And my life experience has taught me that those are false beliefs. And so every time that I certainly haven't been obedient every time, but there's been several times where myself or my wife and I have felt big nudges to do something extremely different. And we've gone for those, and they've always been the best thing that we ever did. Maybe not the easiest, but certainly the best. And then they've always been very, very proving of how God is going to provide no matter what. And so what I've experienced is it's really easy for me to do those things now, because I think the more that I've done them and seen God show up, the easier it becomes. Because I think anyone listening to this can look back on their entire life, from being a toddler to elementary school to middle school to high school to college to profession, and see that like God really hasn't left them, and he's always been there. And so that's really helpful for me. That said, I still don't have the $1 million answer to what you tell someone who's kind of remaining in that apathetic world.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. I was curious where you landed on it. I feel like it's the older I get, the more nuanced that feels. And the reason I've always been a risk taker. Like I think I told you before we hit record, I came to this town that I'm currently living in. I was here for 24 hours, and I decided to buy a house and pick up my family and move across the entire country and move here. Like, I didn't know anyone. And so I kind of like that. I get a thrill out of it. And But I think I'm thinking about my friends who are like, they would want to make some kind of big change, but their wife is just like, listen, all I want you to do is just like go work hard, provide a stable life for our family, and just like don't ruffle any feathers, just like go to work, provide for us, and come home. And I have actual friends who like that's a very real reality for them. And so he's apathetic and he doesn't really love his job, but he also has kids and he's got a wife and he's got a mortgage and he's thinking through like, I don't, my wife would be really upset if I just said, hey, we're going to pack up and move. So I'm just like, I don't know what the right, I'm curious. I'm trying to think through like, what would my mentors tell me is right. I remember a mentor telling me like, don't do anything unless your wife's on board.
Yeah.
Or a lot of guys are like, my wife's not on board. So I don't know. I feel like it might be nuanced. I will say this though. I actually was just talking to a friend about this yesterday. I do think any life disruption always moves you forward, even if it doesn't always work out in the way that you thought it was going to work out.
Yeah. One of the keys to maximizing your workout is to make sure that you're eating clean and putting the right fuel in your body. Mountain Tough has preached this since the beginning. You're also seeing a shift right now nationally where we're calling out hidden additives, hidden substances in our food. As a hunter, when you process your own meat, you control everything. No additives, no shortcuts, no compromises. Just clean fuel built for peak performance. My family has been processing our own wild game for years using field-tested, hardcore processing equipment from the team over at Meat. Meat offers world-class grinders, stuffers, slicers, everything you need to turn your wild game into clean, high-octane fuel. No gimmicks, just high-quality tools that get the job done, and they're backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Take control of your life. Take control of your health. Click the link in the podcast description below to claim your special offer from Meat and start fueling the right way today.
So my buddy was thinking about also moving across the country, and because he's just in that kind of apathetic, just stuck and stagnant. And but same thing. He's like, what will this mean financially and all the risks that come along with it? And it's a big deal to uproot my family. But I was telling him like, I really do believe every time you kind of pick up your life and shake it up a little bit, it always works out for the better. Even if you did it and you got there and you hated it and you're like 3 months later, we're moving back, you're going to learn something.
Yeah.
I just am a firm believer of like having your life shaken up is a really good thing. It like changes your perspective. It does what you just said. Like you have to rely on God. You find deeper relationship with Jesus. You rely on him in a deeper way. So even if you're like, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to work out, but I do think taking the risks are worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think normally what that has done for me is the thing that you might shake up your life for and go after might not be the thing that you envision is going to happen, but it's going to lead you to the thing.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. It never ends up being the thing.
Yeah, it always leads you to the thing.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
So how do you define and articulate to people the concept of dad tired?
Well, dad tired, like the name dad tired. It's funny because that people always say how great they like or how much they think the name is great, and I'm like, it was just off the whim. I wasn't trying to be smarter. It was the smartest unintentional thing I've ever done. It turned out working. It turned out working because it just guys can relate to it. But yeah, I had no kind of deep thoughts behind it or like deep strategy. Essentially, though, what we started with is just saying like, if you are doing the right thing, if you are trying to be the husband and father and man that God is calling you to be, you're probably going to be exhausted. Like exhaustion is part of it. We've kind of morphed that into saying your body is going to be tired if you are stepping up and leading in the way that God's called you to, but your soul should never be weary. And so even though like when we think through dad tired, physically, dude, like I could take a nap right now. Like if we stopped recording, I could go lay on the bed and just crash. My 4-year-old woke me up at 4:00 this morning because she had a bad dream. Like just always tired, but I don't want my soul to be weary. And that's really what we say a lot at Dad Tired is like, we want We want your body to be tired, but your soul not to be weary. And weary souls are like an indication that something is going on underneath the hood that you need to address.
Hmm.
And that has been the biggest thing for me, dude. Like if my soul is weary, it's kind of like lights on the dashboard that are telling me, hey, something's off and you need to address what's going on. I'll always feel tired as a dad, but I don't want my soul to be weary. And there's been oftentimes for me like where I need to lean into some healing, specifically of my soul, so that I can be the man God's called me to be.
I love that. Yeah, like Pastor Joby Martin there in Jacksonville, he always talks about how for a long time he's prayed for broader shoulders, not less responsibilities.
Mm,
And I've always loved that because he's not scared to be exhausted. He's not
yeah.
scared that there's a lot to do. But the weary soul really stands out to me as well. What, like for a guy listening, how do they know if their soul is weary?
One of the, I think, easiest indications is how short-tempered you are, how grumpy you are. Have you lost your joy? We just did a podcast on this recently because I feel like for my own self, and I feel like so many of my friends, we just feel like grumpy dads.
Mm.
I mean, just like I'm constantly just kind of, I'm on my kids. I feel like they're annoying. I don't have space and quiet. And it's like, that's not the dad I want to be. And so many guys feel that way. It's like, man, I'm not the, I thought I'd be playing with my kids and having fun with my kids. And I just feel like I'm a grumpy dad all the time. That's usually an indication like, okay, yeah, of course you're tired, but is there something else going on? They're just really other practical ones. Like, how's your sleep? Like, are you having a hard time sleeping? Are you using any kind of substance to get yourself relaxed?
Mm.
And you can go down all kinds of, I think every guy can figure out what that looks like. Are you numbing out constantly? And that can be something as simple as social media. Are you just like constantly scrolling social media or the news, or through things more destructive? Like, are you addicted to porn? And so then you just have to say, like, why am I going to all these medications to numb myself? And that's just an indication, like, dude, something's going on under the soul,
Mm.
under the hood of your soul. And most, like, by the way, every guy has that. Like, we all have something going on underneath the hood of our soul, and so that's not like a shame thing. But most of us will never stop to say, well, what is it? And am I willing to address it? Do I have the guts to address it? But when you do, and you kind of unpack that, you'll find yourself being less grumpy and not medicating through all these other things that I mentioned just a
Yeah.
second ago.
Yeah, I saw the talk that you did around suffering, and that there will always be suffering, and suffering isn't going away.
Mm,
And it's more of learning how to navigate through life in a healthy way, rather than thinking that because you're suffering or facing adversity, it's outside the norm or it's never going to go away, but just realizing that there's always going to be these highs and lows of life, and that's never going to change. Do you think that is like a major pillar of kind of getting that soul back in the right spot?
Well, that's a hard pill to swallow if that's true. So I interviewed a guy for the Dad Tired podcast 2 hours ago, and try not to like spoil it, but so he has three children. All three of his kids have a terminal illness. It's hereditary disease that all three of his kids ended up testing positive for.
Hmm.
They're 10 and under, and all three of them will die likely before they're 18. And this guy in this conversation said he would rather suffer than be apathetic. He like used that statement in the podcast because he said, I know that in my suffering, I'm finding depths with the Lord that I would never find if I were apathetic.
Man.
So to answer your question, like, this is the conundrum of the kingdom of God, is that in order to find him, it's often the hardest road, which is why Jesus said most people won't do it, that the road is really narrow. Most people will take the wide path to destruction because that road is paved and is super easy and comfortable. Very few people will take the narrow road to find him because that road is often going to be hard. It's also why Jesus said in Matthew 5, blessed are those who mourn. And in the kingdom, it's like, why would you be blessed if you're mourning? Not one person is going to search on Instagram right now the hashtag blessed and find anyone who's mourning.
Yeah.
Like nobody thinks like that. But Jesus said that is a blessing. And so then you have to ask why. Well, he would say, because you're getting closer to me. Like in your suffering, you're realizing you are not a good God. This world cannot provide you the comfort your soul's desiring. Only I can. It's bringing you back to me. And so the crazy thing is, to like, back to your question, is do I want to be a man who is out of apathy, who is finding resilience, who is becoming more like Jesus? Well, the road to that is likely going to be suffering. And how do you pray that prayer? Like, God, I want to be more like you. And if that requires suffering, I'm willing to do it. Like which one of us has the balls to pray that prayer?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know right now. I don't know if I would pray that prayer. Even knowing that it's true, it's still so hard. And yet I also know that in all my suffering I've experienced in my life, there's some kind of like bitter sweetness in it. I literally just went through one of the hardest chapters of my life this last year, like dark stuff. And in the middle of it, I was like, I think I'm going to miss when this goes away.
Dang.
Because the depth that I feel with Jesus right now is so real that I know this is going to go away. It's going to get better. It's going to smooth out, and I'm going to miss my dependence on God.
The closeness.
Yeah.
That's profound. Did you have to go through as like a freelance author and public speaker? Did you have to go through a lot of financial security concerns and like what other people are going to think concerns to kind of launch out on your own like you've done?
Yeah, there's this saying that says like, an entrepreneurs are the only people who will work 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40. And I remember one time I was working, I've always been a pastor. And so I was working in the church world. And I remember I just started at this church, and I like immediately when I started or before I started, I had a vacation planned. So I went on that, and then I came back and they told me like the leadership told me like, okay, you're out of vacation for the year. And I was like, okay, and I had at that time, I think 2 young kids at home. And I'm like, okay, I'm never doing, like, I can't do this. Like, and I don't know if that's the millennial in me or what that is, but I'm just like, I would rather be home with my kids right now than to like be working for you. I know that sounds terrible, especially as a pastor in a church, but I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. So for me, and fortunately I had a wife who was like, we agreed before we even had kids, we would rather live in a trailer and spend the most amount of time with each other and with our kids than to live a rich life and to never spend time with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just said like, all right, well, we're going to figure something else out. And so I actually, it's a long story, but I ended up getting fired from that church, which was a blessing in many ways. And dude, I drove Uber, I sold gutters at Costco, I did freelance photography. Like I just did anything I could to pay bills. But honestly, I don't regret any of it because I just would have rather had been my own boss. And if I wanted to go hang out with my kids, I wanted to hang out with my kids regardless of having somebody tell me I can do it or not.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question, or did it go off on a weird tangent?
No, that was super helpful. Even I was talking to a guy yesterday that's like a really inspiring individual and has done some amazing things with his career. And he left a really, really high-powered kind of business career to go out and start this wild kind of audacious idea. And the idea worked, and he's now in about year 16 or 17 of that idea working. And he is not making nearly as much as he did back in those financial kind of powerhouse days, but he's tremendously full of joy. And he's tremendously full of joy. A lot of it is related to how he's able to manage his time, control his time, and he really views time as the most valuable thing that he has in life. But it was so cool yesterday chatting with him because he did it, and like he felt the call. He was obedient. He made the switch that everyone thought he was kind of crazy to make, and he's so glad that he did it. But one of the coolest things he said to me yesterday is he said he wished he would have done it 3 years sooner, because he felt it and saw it 3 years before he executed on it. And he's like, man, I wish I would have acted sooner. At least I acted, but I wish I would have acted sooner, because like when I did it, my kid was a sophomore in college, but I wish I would have done it when he was a junior in high school. Like think of what a difference that would have made, those 3 years, those 3 really powerful years of doing these things I wanted to do with him then before he gets to this age. And I was like, man, that's crazy to see that story and to think about you're still thinking about those 3 years that you'll never get back.
Yep. Yeah, that is powerful. My wife's an oncology nurse, and so she works with cancer patients, and she's like walking people into sometimes their death. Cancer doesn't always lead in death, but sometimes it is their death journey. And so we're just kind of surrounded by those stories often. I think that's what motivates us. This like time is the biggest value to me too. I really like, if I just need to make enough to pay my bills, like I for sure could be making more money if I went and got a real job. And there are times that I think about it, because probably should start thinking about retirement more. I mean, I'm getting too old for this. But also I'm just like, I really, really want time with my kids while they're young, and the most time possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well, so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough Podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial, plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app.
Well, let's transition more into solutions that you've seen working for dads and things that are making a difference. What do you think is like some top 3 things that individuals living kind of in this stress bubble should be thinking about?
I'll just say, for me personally, if I can kind of give my personal view on this and what's happened in my life, is I've been a dad now for 14 years, so I still feel like I'm a rookie. I don't really at all feel like I know what I'm doing. But last year I went into intensive counseling, which I've never been like hey, everybody go to counseling. You know, I've always said about counseling, like, I don't know who signs up for it, especially as a dude. I don't know what dude like wants to go, you know, if the wife suggests maybe we should go to counseling, like, I don't know what dude like says, yeah, that's not great idea. To me, counseling has always felt like, why would I pay a guy to tell me I suck? You know, like, I already know I suck at things. Like, I don't need to pay somebody to tell me that. So I've never been a big counseling guy. I just want to give that caveat. But this last year, I hit rock bottom, as I said, and I ended up going to a 2-week counseling program, intensive. So I left my family. I had no access to my phone, TV, internet, anything for 2 weeks. I was with 9 other guys. And it's essentially, the best way I can describe it, it felt like cancer treatment, like a really, really long surgery where they're basically going to say, we are going to go inside and just pull out every cancerous tumor there is. We're going to look through your entire body and find what cancer tumor there is. And that's kind of what it felt like with the counseling. It's like, we're going to go into your soul and we're going to go back from day one of your life, and just everything in there that's been cancerous, we're going to cut out and figure out what is there and how to get rid of it. Yeah. So it sucked, dude. It was so, in hindsight, if I'd known everything before I went there, I don't think I would have gone, because it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. That being said, it was the most impactful, life-changing thing I've ever done in my life. And I'm saying all this, a long-winded answer to answer your question, but I came home. I didn't once talk about anything regarding parenting or marriage when I was there. It was all my own wounds, like addressing my own wounds. When I came home, I was 100 times better of a husband. My wife literally just said yesterday, like, the husband I have now compared to the husband I had the last 14 years is night and day difference. Like, I'm married to a new man. And I think my kids, if they could articulate that in their little vocabularies, they would say something to the same effect. Like, I'm a different dad. And again, I didn't study parenting. I didn't study marriage. All I did was address my own wounds. And so, again, long-winded answer to say, if you really, really want to be a good dad, and you really want to be a good husband, and you want to be a good man, you have to deal with your own junk. And it goes back to what we were talking about before. But otherwise, you're just numbing out. You're living a life of apathy. You're just surviving. And I'm at the spot for the first time in my life. I'm 38 years old. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm not just surviving. I can look myself in the mirror and I'm like proud of the dude I see. I've never been able to do that, if I'm totally honest. Yeah. Felt a ton of shame my whole life. Wasn't proud of the guy I was. And for the first time in my life, I'm like, no, I'm proud of this dude. Broken, jacked up, still figuring it out, but I'm proud of the man that God has created me to be. And as a result, I'm just a way better dad and way better husband.
That's incredible.
Because of the healing I'm finding. You know?
What did the feeling of hitting rock bottom look like for you?
Yeah, dude, that's, I don't know how to answer that question without being totally vulnerable. You know?
Yeah.
So for me, dude, if I'm just totally honest, it was, you know, I won't go into all the details, but I got to the point where I thought I was going to end my life. I thought that I'd be better off. My family and the people around me would be better off without me here. I was truly convinced of that. And that's weird because, like, the weekend before I, you know, came to that conclusion in my brain, I was speaking on stages. I'm literally on stage, flying across the country. I was on a radio show. This is what happened that weekend. I was on a podcast with an NFL 2-time Super Bowl winning champion. Then I went down and recorded a national radio show. And then I flew across the country and spoke to a large group of men. And then came home and decided I should end my life.
Jeez.
Like, that was my week.
That's
so
wild.
From the outside, it was like nobody would have thought that, but inside I'm in turmoil, and in turmoil in the sense that, like, one of the biggest things I felt was being on stage and telling them a message that I really believed, but I hadn't experienced. I really believe this for you. I really want this for you, man. I have not experienced it yet. I didn't say that, but that's what and so that it's so lonely, bro. Just so lonely. And at the heart of that loneliness is like the thought of, if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me. everybody says they love me. Cool. You wrote a book, you have a podcast, whatever. But if you really knew me, this was the lie I was believing. If you really knew me, you wouldn't love me.
Yeah.
And so I, by the grace of God, didn't take my own life. But in that hotel room, as I hit the darkest moment of my life, I called an older, wiser guy, and he helped me find help. And he said, "You're going to get some counseling. We're going to walk you through this." And that's what started that whole process. But from that, I ended up confessing lots of sin, ended up dealing with lots of the wounds that I've been carrying since I was a little boy. And then what I experienced was my wife knew every single part of me, everything about me.
Yeah.
And she said, "I still love you and I want to be with you." It was painful, hard. She still said, "I want to be with you." I told my best friends, like, "Dude, this is stuff I've been struggling with." And they looked at me and said, "I love you and I'm with you." Like, they weren't even as like, it's crazy because in our minds, I'm like, nobody would ever talk to me again if they knew all of me, all my brokenness. And there's like, "Oh, you got anything else?"
Yeah.
And they just love me. I was literally with a guy yesterday who literally knows everything. Like, he knows all my secrets. And the dude he's like, "No, you're my best friend. I love you."
Man.
And now I'm experiencing this level of freedom. I just took the shame backpack off. And that's why it's way easier to have joy, to not be so grumpy of a dad, to not snap at my kids so much, and love my wife better, all these things. So anyway, I feel like I'm rambling, but
man, that's amazing. Yeah. The power of that, and because so much of what we are dealing with is the battle of the mind. And then, if you factor in trauma combined with spiritual warfare and deception and lies, it is all the battle of the mind. And that can get any man, regardless of what they're doing or, how big of a stage they're on. The battle of the mind is kind of relentless too. It's thoughts that can get in there any day, all day, every day. And so understanding how to navigate that and how to deal with that. And just for a lot of men, understanding that that's a thing is helpful. Like understanding that we do live in a war, and there is an unseen world, and that unseen world is directly targeting our mind, our mindset, our thoughts. It's pretty wild. It's wild the more that I've understood some of that, the more that I've understood just how much we have to be intentional.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code MOUNTAINTOUGH, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com.
I mean, so I do a thing called Garage Group where I invite some guys, some of my best friends into my garage, and it's like Bible study or accountability group doesn't feel as hard, or it doesn't feel as good, so it's like we do Garage Group.
Better name.
Yeah. And Garage just always, it just always felt like it fit better because garages represent like the lives of a man. Like we have compartments, we're often good at compartmentalizing it and we're trying to keep it clean, but it still kind of feels like a mess. Just feels like a really good analogy for us as men. Anyway, I do this with these guys, and like one's a former Navy SEAL. I have a former F-35 pilot. There was a guy at my house this week who's U.S. Marshal team. Like just, these are guys who are like, they're strong mentally, right? Mm-hmm. But all of these dudes, especially because I keep pressing them and keep pressing them and keep pressing them, it's like they know that if they don't protect their mind, that like all of this stuff will infiltrate and is strong. And this is the most frustrating thing. It's like they can accomplish a mission. You can put some bad guys in front of them and they're going to do what they need to do. And yet they can't quite figure out why they feel sad or lonely or even how to articulate that.
Yeah.
And that's a frustrating thing. I've literally watched them squirm as they're like, I don't know what I'm feeling. Why am I feeling this? Just give me something to do, just give me a task. And this is the thing, dude. It's like the strongest men I know are sometimes can at least recognize that like this is hard stuff to keep your mind healthy, to have strong mental health. And then, like you said, you factor in, if you're a Christian, you believe that we serve an enemy, or we have an enemy who is the father of lies, which means all day, every day, he's just implanting lies into your head. And this is all mental health is. Mental health is essentially not viewing the world correctly, right? Like that, you're just not viewing the world correctly. You're believing some kind of lie, and I have some sadness or anxiety or anger towards my wife or the people around me. It's like, it's all just based on lies. And the cool thing is the truth of the scripture and what Jesus does, he exposes lies and brings them to the light. But it is a constant battle of what lie am I believing and how is that affecting me today?
Yeah. Yeah. Lies from the enemy that he's really good at telling. I mean, he's been doing it for thousands of years. So he's very talented and he knows the exact one to serve you at the exact time. Yeah.
Well, you think about in the Garden of Eden, it's the first time we ever see the enemy talk in the scriptures. And what is the first words that he ever says to Adam and Eve? He says to Eve, did God really say you can't eat from any tree in the garden? And it's super clever language because God said you can't eat from this tree, but he didn't say you can't eat from any tree. Mm-hmm. So he's like twisting. It's just slight untruth,
manipulation,
and it's confusing. It's confusing because it's like, whoa, wait, did God say that? No, he said not. It causes you to kind of pause and think for a second. What did God say? And that's the same exact thing he's doing today. It's like, well, your value's only based on how much you accomplish. Like your business card says this, like you're not that great, or you didn't bring in enough money, or you're not that great of a provider for your family, or you're supposed to be a provider, well, you're not that great a provider. Like it's just this subtle twisting of this language. It's like causes confusion. And all of a sudden you start going down some deep, dark rabbit holes. And next thing you know, you're waking up and you're super depressed and sad and lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard some of your talks as well, how in addition to like apathy and numbness, we also, as men, are really good at hiding behind things. And so we will feel those things based on those lies, and we'll start hiding behind our job title, our business card, our hobbies, things that we're, really, really good at from a hobby perspective, and just have this mask, and we're just hiding behind this big identity.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first thing Adam did, right? Is he felt some shame. He felt like he wasn't good enough. He sinned against God, did what God didn't or told him not to do, and so he hides. And I just think that all of us are doing that to some extent. I've spent most of my life, if I'm totally honest, this is why I said I was like so depressed, as I spent most of my life hiding. It's like I don't want you to know who I really am, because if you do, you won't love me. And so let me hide behind some kind of accomplishment. I will say the biggest thing. So there were so many things in that intensive counseling that I did that were healing, but I was in like day 10. I was with these 9 other dudes. Part of the program is you can't talk about work. So you don't know what anyone else does for work. Nobody knows what I did for work. I didn't know what any of them did for work. So there's no accomplishments. All these guys knew about me was literally my deepest, darkest sin. Like on day 2, you have to like confess all your stuff. And then the counselors know you hid stuff. So then you go through another round, like at day 6, So it's just like,
just pour it out.
Yeah. It's just like this constant purging of all your worst moments of life and most embarrassing things. So I'm there at day 10, and these guys literally don't know anything good about me. No accomplishments. All they know are the worst things about me. And I remember we had just done this session, like this group session. It was late at night before we went to bed. We were sitting in the living room, and I'm sitting there watching all these guys talking. And I remember thinking to myself, all of these guys, I feel like really love me, and they really like me, and they don't know one good thing about me.
That is wild.
All they know are the worst things about me.
That is wild.
And they really like me. And that clicked for me, because that was the first time I realized, like, I don't have to be impressive. I don't have to be full of accomplishments. I don't have to have a cool business card. Like, all that I need to be is just me. I didn't even know who I was, honestly, going in there. But it's like, okay, this is who I am. I'm just a normal dude who, is a good friend. I like to tell stories and make jokes. And I'm just a normal guy. And all I have to be is that normal guy, authentically me, and I can be liked. And that was a game changer for me.
That is wild. Yeah. Just 9 guys sharing their deepest sins, not like doing the chest pounding or the accomplishment sharing or trying to beat another guy with a better story.
Right.
You're just like, we're all dumpster fires in different ways. Totally. And then you come out of
the
that.
only story you could beat is like, my sin was worse than yours. And that's not really the accomplishment you're trying to go for.
That's a profound learning, though. Really profound, especially when I think about, there's like a famous hospice study that's talked about a lot, where a researcher interviewed thousands and thousands of people over time that were in hospice care. And by far the number one regret was they didn't live a life to their true self.
Yeah.
They didn't live the life they wanted, and they lived their life trying to please others and do things that would please others. Number one deathbed regret.
I believe it.
And
it's also exhausting. It's exhausting to try to just keep up with like the person you're trying to present yourself to the world, and internally you don't feel like that's who you really are. Like, this interview for me would have been exhausting, because I would be trying to like think through, am I saying the right thing? Are people going to like me? Am I impressive? Do I sound smart? Or now I'm just like,
this is who I am.
I don't know if this is good or not, but like, I know my wife really loves me, and I know my friends really love me. So it's just way less exhausting,
Yeah, freeing, that freedom in that.
Yeah.
In closing, just because we are getting close to the time, are you any other kind of like final things outside of the counseling that you would really recommend to men?
Yeah, and I'll say it doesn't necessarily need to be counseling. Like, not every dude needs to go through a 14-day, intensive in order to find that. I think honestly, just finding a good brother like that you can just have regular, like, just do a garage group and you're just kind of having a regular confession of sin, I think is massively helpful. The Bible says that if we confess our sins to God, he's faithful and just to forgive us and cleanse us of all unrighteousness. So you confess your sins to God, you're forgiven. That's awesome. Like you could be addicted, you could be full of sin, you could have done some crappy stuff last night, and you're going to show up before God. And if you've confessed your sins, he's faithful to forgive you. But that being said, you might not be healed. And a lot of guys are forgiven but not healed. And then James says, if you confess your sins to each other, you'll find healing. So there's forgiveness from God, and then there's healing when we confess our sins to each other. And I think, had I just confessed my sin regularly to another brother, like we had that kind of relationship, I don't think I would have got to the dark spot that I would have been in. So just honestly having good friends is going to be, and you don't need like 10, by the way. You just need like 1 or 2. And you probably already have that 1 or 2 in your life. It's just going to take one of the dudes being intentional and just saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. And inevitably he's going to say, me too, or I've also struggled with something like that. And if he doesn't, you need like find a different friend, because that guy's lying to you.
You got to be vulnerable.
Yeah. So I would say, you can find it. You don't necessarily have to go to counseling, although I do think that that's helpful. I don't know what else to say, man, except if you think that you just can keep pushing these, for lack of better words, like demons down, traumas down, brokenness down, pain down, and it's not going to bleed out somewhere, you're just fooling yourselves. And if you really want to be the man that God has called you to be, again, you just have to have the courage to say, okay, Lord, I'm willing to let you address this in my life. And I had someone on the podcast recently say this, and I thought it was really good. Like, it doesn't have to be right in one sitting, even in 1 year, but just the willingness to say, God, all right, I'm not going to try to stuff these things in the attic or basement anymore. Like, you have access to my whole life. And if that takes the next 10 years or 30 years to deal with, I'm open to it. If it takes the next 30 days to deal with, I'm open to it, but I'm just open to you cleaning out every area. And I think God will honor that. And the cool thing is, like I've been saying, like you'll find in yourself that you'll just have a lot more joy and freedom. You won't be as tired, like soul weary. I think if you allow God to get into those nooks and crannies.
Love it. Yeah, I think there's millions of men craving that exact thing, craving how can we make our souls less weary. And so really, really appreciate what you're doing in that area. And I think it is extremely helpful to many, many Mountain Tough listeners. And I know many, many Mountain Tough listeners have gone through, are going through similar stuff, right now at this very moment. So really appreciate you, man. Appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability and for jumping on today.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for giving me the space to keep processing out loud.
Yeah, it's really good. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much.
All right, bro. I'll stay in touch.
What an awesome, deep, profound conversation with Jerrad. Remember, on the Mountain Tough Show, we're always looking for that golden nugget. And obviously, as a listener to this one, I think you're going to see the golden nugget is what he really highlighted over and over again. And that is talking to people about your pain, sin, and suffering. And by him never doing that, that led him to suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideations, and then almost actually going through on the suicide. Certainly the counseling helped him a lot. He went to some very unique counseling, which sounded amazing, but he also talked about that's not going to be the move for everyone, but the move for everyone is having these accountability men in our lives that we can share what is truly going on from a vulnerable perspective in our lives with, and that alone is going to make a huge difference. It is interesting because that has probably been said on 10 Mountain Tough podcasts at this point, that if we don't have a band of brothers in our lives, that we are going to really face some suffering. And so it is a big, big key takeaway from the Mountain Tough community, from the Mountain Tough guests on this show. We've heard it over and over again that you have to have those band of brothers. It doesn't have to be a lot, just like Jerrad said. It can be 1 or 2 guys, but those 1 or 2 guys have to know your deepest, darkest secrets. Love you guys. Thanks for being here, and we will see you on the next episode.